out loud.
Okay, cool. Biologists agree that human beings evolved from a fish, but they disagree about which species of fish. Since biologists agree that frogs are definitely related to the species of fish from which human beings evolved on the basis of a close match between the mitochondrial DNA of lungfish and that of frogs, Dr. Stevens Hoyt claims that this ancestor must be lungfish. Dr. Grover, on the other hand, contends that mitochondrial DNA evolves too rapidly to be a reliable indicator of relationships between species over long periods of time, and citing the close chemical match between the hemoglobin of, I don't know, a saltwater fish and that of tadpoles, claims that human beings must be descended from the saltwater fish.
Okay, so what is our conclusion here?
Okay, so what I wrote was the first sentence that biologists agree that human beings evolved from a fish, but they disagree about which species of fish.
Okay, what is our subsidiary conclusion?
That Dr. Grover claims that human beings must be descended from the saltwater fish.
I don't think there is one.
Oh, okay.
Sure would say. Okay, because our support here is we have one, like we have like, okay, this is what they agree on, right?
Mm-hmm. They're like frogs, definitely. Like there's no question about the frogs. But then the two doctors are starting to disagree about like the ancestor.
Yes, excellent. Somewhere down.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so then it says, which of the following most accurately describes the role played in the dispute above by the proposition that frogs are definitely related to the species of fish from which human beings evolve? Where is that at? Oh, right here. Since
biology. So yeah, right after the conclusion.
Okay, so what did you predict here that role played in relationship to the conclusion?
So initially when I read this, I was like, okay, they're saying, okay, human beings evolved from a fish. Mm-hmm. And even though they disagree about the species of fish, they both have a general consensus and agreement that frogs are definitely related to the species of fish. So I was confused because I was like, so does that mean they think humans and the frogs share a shared ancestor?
Okay, so our conclusion is biologists agree that human beings evolved from a fish, but we disagree about what fish, right? Mm-hmm. So what role does the biologist agree that frogs are definitely related to the species play?
All I can really think of is that they just like agree on this. Like,
right,
this is not going to be the point of argument.
Right. It's kind of like, hey, this is what we agree that this comes from, and they're definitely related. It's kind of funny because they're kind of saying like, hey, we agree that frogs are definitely related to the species of fish which we came from, but we still can't agree on this fish.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I would describe, or how I would say it. So what did you narrow it down to on this one?
I was between C and E. So I eliminated A, B, and D right off the bat when I first went through this question.
Because it says, for A, since it implies humans are not descended from monkeys, it's cited evidence against. Yeah, it is not cited as evidence against the claim that humans.
Yeah. I was like, that's like too strong and we like can't.
Well, yeah, and it's not like we're just saying like, hey, we know that fish also relate to this other fish, but we have no idea we don't agree on what this fish is. Yeah. I'm sorry, you said that you were between C and E?
C and E, yeah. So I got rid of A, B, and D.
They're not descended from is offered. Yeah, that's wrong for the same reason as A. And then D, it is an assumption that both parties to the dispute use as a starting point. Oh.
Yeah. So I get it now that we've gone through it and like broke it down. Because when I first read this, I was able to identify the conclusion, identify the differences between Stephen's claim and Grover's claim, but I just, for whatever reason, I couldn't figure out what the premise of the frog argument was doing.
I think it's a weird premise, to be honest. That's why I was asked. Like,
Yeah, and I was like,
I was trying to pull it out of you. I'm like, what could this be? And there's not really. I mean, there is a rule clearly because it's there, but I'm like, it's not really a rule. It's more like we have this umbrella. We have this other point that like we know that we come from a fish, but we still don't agree on the fish.
yeah,
Okay, so C says it is offered as evidence for the contention that human beings must descend from either lungfish or a
yeah,
Never
no.
do we have to exist from those?
Mm,
I think as soon as I would have read must be, I would have crossed this one off.
yeah,
And then E says it implies that either a match of mitochondria DNA or a match of hemoglobin between lungfish and Colacalus would show that human beings evolved from one of these two species. So what do you think of that answer now?
it's wrong because I again,
Why? Why is it wrong?
because it's not talking about the dispute of the frogs. It's bringing in the argument between Grover and Stevens about like the DNA, whether it's going to be the saltwater fish or if it's going to be from the, what is it, monkfish or something, the other fish.
Yeah, we don't care. Like, we're not, the fact that there's overlap, or I guess the fact that we believe that fish came from the same species that humans did doesn't guarantee that it came from one of these two species that these two people are arguing about.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because see, that's why I wasn't sure, because I know we have to take the premises as like true, right? Like we can't
Right.
really bring in our own outside info.
But
So
do we have a premise that says it has to be one of these two fishes?
no, they're just bringing up two examples. Got it. Okay.
You see that?
So,
And
yeah,
that's
so
why
I can think like that. Like even though I know that's true, I can still say in that scenario, because it's not saying
like
there's only two choices.
right. We for sure come from one of these two. And
Got
that's
it.
because we think there's this debate, that LSAT leads us in this direction, right? Of it has to be one of these two.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
to assume. Where D, it is an assumption that both parties to the dispute use, do they both use this here as a starting point for their arguments?
Yeah.
Yes, because we both agree with it, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
That makes sense now. Thank you, Nicole.